Hello YouTube, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney. On this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. And we have Crazy here today for Halloween. It's Halloween. It's October 31st, the only day that New York City is still cool. In my opinion, New York City crushes Halloween. It is the best holiday and the only good holiday to spend in New York City. We have a question here from YouTube user Jimmy. Jimmy may have used his entire name, so we're not going to read the entire username. And Jimmy says, I am in Ohio. Everyone I talk to wants my case, but the EEOC has not completed their investigation, and the attorneys want 40% of my money, and I must pay taxes on this money. Can you tell me what the difference between federal court wrongful termination settlement versus state settlement? I'm sure these people are not willing to go to court. It seems like they are after fast cash instead of getting me justice. Okay, lots going on there. First, I'll answer your question. So, wrongful termination is not a claim. If you're dealing with workplace discrimination, workplace sexual harassment, that's a different story. And I get people call that wrongful termination. But generally, when you call attorneys and say wrongful termination, they try to hang up on you. They're like, not interested. That's not a claim. In most parts of the country. Not the entirety of the country, and in most situations, right? Like, there's definitely situations where wrongful termination is contractually a claim or can be a claim under certain contexts and unions or a couple of local statutes. There's rare situations. But generally, in most of the country, wrongful termination is just not a claim. Now, I'm going to assume, Jimmy, that you were talking about some form of workplace discrimination, workplace sexual harassment. So let's go with that. First question is, what is the difference between a federal court workplace discrimination or workplace sexual harassment claim and a state court workplace sexual harassment or workplace discrimination claim? So in federal court, you can bring the federal claims, the state claims, and potentially local claims. In state court, you can bring state and local claims. That is the simplest way to put it. Right? Like, you can bring all the claims in federal court or some of the claims in state court. Now, in some parts of the country, there can be reasons why you go with state court. There can be certain advantages in terms of procedure. There can be certain advantages in terms of the jury pool available to you. Here in New York, you might, in certain federal districts, you might find yourself dealing with jury members from Westchester or Staten Island that might not be ideal for, let's call it, a workplace discrimination case, right? They might generally be predisposed to not be properly sympathetic to a victim of workplace discrimination, right? So you might look and you might say, ooh, maybe I'll go ahead with state court, get myself a jury pool from a more beneficial county, right? There's things you might do to play with that, but that's generally that's the kind of thing you're looking at if you're trying to decide between state and federal court. Generally speaking, in most of the nation, most of the time, federal court makes more sense. But it's always a localized determination. Next part of the question. Everybody wants my case, but the EEOC has not completed their investigation. Yeah, you should probably already have an attorney if you're in the EEOC. They want 40% of my money, and I must pay taxes on this money. So you don't pay taxes on what the attorney receives. You only pay taxes on what you receive. In terms of 40%, I think it's a perfectly reasonable contingency if they're doing good work for you, if they're working hard. I mean, the question always becomes, do you think they're adding enough value that they're worth the 40%, right? So here you don't seem to, because you're saying, hey, I think these people are after fast cash. They don't seem like they're willing to go to court. That makes sense to me. You wouldn't pay somebody necessarily for a quick settlement, 40%. If that's all, if they're just trying to flip your case, right? That wouldn't necessarily make sense. So I'm with you on that. Justice, you're just talking about getting justice. That's not a thing. You're not going to get justice. You're going to get money. Just realistically, that's not. These laws don't really provide for justice. At least that's how I feel. They do provide for some money, but I don't know how often I've seen justice served in this industry, if I'm being honest, Jimmy. Yeah, I mean, your main question here is you're talking about they want 40%. So if you can find an attorney that's worth that 40%, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like right now, you're using language that isn't even a claim, right? Which is not your fault. This is not your job. But you're not, it doesn't seem from this question like you're currently on a trajectory to a payday. Just because you're not, I don't know if you're researching the elements of your claim. I don't know if you know what you need to prove to prove your case. I don't know if, I don't know what you're filing in the EEOC. I don't know if you want to take the time to work with the pro se support office, learn the depths of federal practice or state court practice wherever you are, and file this case on your own. Generally speaking, 99% of pro se litigants are not going to recover. Just in my experience, that's a great way to throw a claim away. But I do hear you when you say like, oh, these attorneys are just looking to flip my case. Yeah, totally. You got to find an attorney that's good for you, right? You got to find an attorney who has a unity of interest with you, wants to do what you want to do, has the capabilities to do what you want to do, and actually makes sense, right? Like that, the deal has to make sense. If they're looking for 40%, as you point out here, they've got to be adding more than 40%, right? I mean, you need to come out ahead if you hire this attorney, even after they take their percentage. And that's key here, Jimmy. And I'm with you on that. That makes perfect sense. But I just wanted to address this because there's a couple different things going on here. And it looks like you're probably in the preliminary stages of researching, getting comfortable with the law in this field. And I'd recommend maybe the first stop, especially if you're going to be representing yourself, is getting a feel for those elements of your case. What do you have to prove in the federal claims in your case? What do you have to prove to prevail in the state claims in your case? Are there local claims? What do you have to prove in those local claims to prevail in your case? Getting a demand together, calculating your damages. These are all things that you need to be engaged in now if you're not going to be hiring an attorney. You need to be out ahead of these issues. The EEOC is really, they're just going to try to settle the case, and they're going to then issue a right to sue letter, which is your key to federal court, but you're only going to have 90 days once you get that right to sue letter to get filed in federal court, and that time goes by in seconds. It goes by so fast. I can't stress enough how frantic people get when they get the right to sue letter and like, wait, what? I have to be in federal court in 90 days. How can I do that? I don't know how to do that. I need to find an attorney. And then the attorneys are like, wait a second. There's 2 weeks left on your 90 days. You want me to give up nights and weekends because you're goofing off over here? I don't know. Better be a pretty good case, right? That's the attitude of a lot of these attorneys, which I do understand. Like, if you're goofing around, instead of hiring an attorney, and I'm not talking about you, Jimmy, but this random hypothetical person is goofing around. There's only 2 weeks left on their right to sue letter. You know, I mean, not every attorney is going to be like, oh, yeah, I should go ahead and ruin my life for 2 weeks because you wanted to not hire an attorney and you understand the basics of procedure here, right? Like, I do kind of understand their perspective on that. I think that, like, listen, we need to kind of be bending backwards a little bit here because people that we're representing have been through a lot, and perhaps if we're going to be making money off discrimination, especially if we're going to be looking like me, without too many protected classes over here, right? Real extensively Caucasian, so white on pink, right? And if I'm going to be making money off discrimination, maybe we ought to be making sure we're helping, even when it's not convenient, even when it's difficult. But yeah, I can't stress enough, get out ahead of this. Don't let the EEOC issue that right to sue letter and then just be shell-shocked. I'm not saying you would, Jimmy, but that's what happens to most folks, realistically speaking. I hope this is useful. I'm going to check the comments down below. Definitely, if you have follow-up questions, like, I'm going to keep an eye out for those, and I'm going to try to make videos on those. I wish you luck. Find those local attorneys. Schedule, 5 consultations. Get your offers, and check the dockets, right? If you're like, hey, I don't know if these guys go to trial, find out. Get on the federal docket and look. And I mean, listen, you're gonna have to figure out how to do that, but you can figure that out. You seem like an intelligent human being to me. See if they go to trial. Has their firm tried cases? That's going to be really clutch for you to find out if this is your major concern here, right? So anyways, I hope this is helpful. Like, subscribe, comment down below. It helps me to help more people just like you. Take care.